It all began 5 years ago when I married my husband, Alex, in a small backyard ceremony surrounded by wildflowers and close friends. The kind of day where everything feels like a fresh start after his messy breakup with his ex, Vanessa, who'd cheated on him during their 3-year relationship and left him heartbroken but determined to move forward. I'd met Alex through work. We were both event planners at competing firms, and our connection was instant, built on shared laughs over chaotic wedding disasters and late-night brainstorming sessions that turned into dates. Vanessa was ancient history by then, or so I thought. She'd moved across the city after the split, started her own boutique event planning business, and occasionally popped up in mutual circles with that polished smile that screamed confidence but hid something sharper underneath. At first, she seemed harmless, friendly even, sending a congratulatory card after our wedding with a note wishing us all the happiness you deserve, which I took as gracious closure. But little cracks appeared early. My first big project post-marriage was coordinating a high-profile corporate gala for a tech startup, something that could put my name on the map. I'd poured months into it, scouting venues, negotiating with vendors, designing custom themes that blended modern elegance with interactive tech elements. Vanessa called out of the blue one afternoon, saying she'd heard about the gig through industry grapevine and wanted to catch up over coffee. Naively, I agreed. Why not network with someone in the same field? We met at a trendy cafe downtown, her in a sleek blazer that screamed success, me in my usual jeans and planner notebook. She smiled brightly, complimented my ring, asked about Alex in that casual way exes do when they're pretending to be over it. "He's doing great," I said, steering the conversation to work. "This gala's keeping me busy, hoping it leads to more corporate clients." She leaned in, eyes sparkling. "Oh, I know the CEO. We went to college together. If you need an intro or tips, let me know." It felt genuine, so I shared a few details, not specifics, just the vibe, and left feeling like I'd made an ally. But 2 weeks later, the startup backed out abruptly, citing budget reallocations with no real explanation. I was devastated, hours wasted, reputation dinged before it could build, but chalked it up to business. Alex comforted me that night over takeout, rubbing my shoulders. "You'll get the next one. You're brilliant." Little did I know, Vanessa had started her sabotage that very day. The next project came quickly, a charity fundraiser for a local animal shelter, something close to my heart since Alex and I adopted our rescue dog, Buddy, right after the honeymoon. I threw myself into it, partnering with local artists for silent auctions, lining up celebrity guests through connections I'd nurtured for years. Vanessa popped up again at an industry mixer I attended solo while Alex stayed home sick. She sidled up with a glass of wine, that same bright smile. "Heard about the gala? Bummer, but this fundraiser sounds amazing. Tell me more." I did, cautiously, mentioning the venue and a few key sponsors. She nodded enthusiastically. "Sounds perfect. If I can help, say the word." A week later, 2 major sponsors pulled out, one claiming a scheduling conflict, the other vague about reputation concerns. The event limped along on a shoestring budget, barely breaking even, and I spent nights questioning my skills, wondering if I was cut out for this after all. Alex held me as I cried. "It's not you, it's bad luck." But luck had nothing to do with it. Vanessa was whispering lies in the background, subtle emails to contacts claiming I'd overpromised on deliverables, anonymous reviews on industry forums hinting at unprofessionalism without specifics, even a fake client testimonial on a review site saying I'd botched a similar event years ago, which was pure fabrication. I didn't connect the dots yet. She was still smiling in my face at occasional run-ins, offering condolences like, "Tough break on the fundraiser, next time will be better." Meanwhile, her own business flourished, snagging clients I'd pitched to first. The pattern continued for months. A wedding I planned for a high society couple, dream job, intricate details from floral arches to custom lighting, fell apart when the venue double-booked after a mysterious calendar glitch, and the bride received an anonymous tip that I was overbooked and unreliable. Vanessa called to commiserate, her voice dripping sympathy. "I hate seeing you struggle. Let me know if you want to collaborate sometime. I could use a partner like you." I politely declined, but the rejections piled up. A product launch canceled due to permit issues she'd quietly reported as fraudulent, a festival gig lost to her firm after she undercut my bid with insider info she'd gleaned from our chats. Alex noticed my growing frustration, the way I'd stare at my laptop screen late at night, scrolling job sites, doubting myself. "You're talented," he'd say, kissing my forehead. "Don't let a string of bad luck define you." But it wasn't luck, it was sabotage, calculated and cruel, hidden behind that perpetual smile. The turning point came a year into our marriage when I landed what felt like a lifeline, coordinating a major art gallery opening, collaborating with renowned artists, potential for national exposure. Vanessa appeared at a pre-event networking brunch, uninvited but connected through mutuals. She hugged me warmly. "This is your big break. Spill the details. I'm rooting for you." I shared minimally, but enough. The theme, a few key pieces. Days later, artists started withdrawing, citing creative differences fed by anonymous calls questioning my vision. One confided in me. "Someone said you were changing the theme behind our backs. Sounded official." Rage built slow and hot. I started digging then, reviewing emails, cross-referencing dates. Patterns emerged. every failure traced back to a conversation with Vanessa, every lost opportunity linked to her network. I confronted Alex that night over dinner, voice shaking. It's her. It has to be. He looked skeptical at first. Vanessa? She's moved on. But as I laid out the timeline, calls, cancellations, her sudden successes, he went pale. Why would she do this? Jealousy, I said. She never let you go, and now she's punishing me for having what she lost. We decided to test it. I fed her false info at our next accidental run-in, claiming a fictitious client with a massive budget. Sure enough, her firm pitched to them days later, undercutting with details only I'd shared. Proof in hand, I felt the shift, from victim to avenger. But uncovering the truth was just the beginning. Fighting back meant exposing her, risking the industry backlash, protecting what was mine without becoming the monster she'd tried to paint me as. Alex stood by me, furious at the betrayal. We end this, together. And as I plotted the next steps, gathering evidence, building alliances, the smiling facade she'd worn for so long began to crack in my mind, revealing the venom beneath. This wasn't just about projects ruined or opportunities blocked. It was war, and I was finally ready to win. The realization that Vanessa was the architect behind every professional setback hit like a slow-building storm. First, the distant thunder of suspicion, then the lightning flash of proof when I fed her that fake client lead and watched her firm swoop in with an identical pitch deck days later, complete with details only she could have known from our casual coffee chats. I sat at my desk that night, staring at the side-by-side comparison on my screen, my original proposal notes versus her submitted version, heart pounding with a mix of fury and grim satisfaction. Alex came home late from a client dinner, found me still in the home office with every light on, and immediately knew something had shifted. "You found something," he said, dropping his bag and pulling a chair beside mine. I showed him the evidence. Timestamps of our conversations, her pitch matching mine word for word in places, the sudden coincidence of her landing the account I'd been quietly pursuing for weeks. His face hardened as he scrolled, jaw tightening until I thought I heard his teeth grind. She's been doing this the whole time. Every lost gig, every pulled sponsor, it was her. I nodded, voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. And she's smiling in my face the whole time, asking how I'm holding up, offering help. It's calculated. Alex stood, paced the small room twice, then stopped in front of me. "We confront her, tomorrow." But I shook my head. No, confronting her now gives her time to cover tracks, spin it as jealousy on my part, turn mutual contacts against me. She's built a reputation as the gracious, successful ex who wishes us well. We need more. Ironclad proof. Then we expose her. He looked at me for a long moment, seeing the shift from hurt to resolve, and nodded. Okay, we build the case. Quietly. The next weeks became a careful operation of gathering evidence while maintaining the facade of normalcy. I continued taking meetings, pitching projects, but I fed Vanessa selective misinformation whenever our paths crossed, at industry mixers, charity events, even the occasional friendly text she sent checking in. Each time I dangled a fake opportunity, a luxury brand launch, a celebrity wedding, a museum gala, I watched her react, then tracked how her firm suddenly pursued the same leads with eerily similar proposals. I saved every email chain, every screenshot of her pitches that mirrored mine, every anonymous review that appeared on my professional profiles right after I'd shared details with her. The lies she spread were subtle but vicious. Whispers at networking events about my flakiness, forged emails from former clients complaining about missed deadlines, sent from burner accounts I traced back to an IP in her neighborhood. Even doctored photos of event setups that looked disastrous but were clearly staged. One particularly cruel move came after I landed a small but promising contract for a local boutique hotel's relaunch party. Within days, the client received an anonymous package containing printouts of negative reviews about me, including one claiming I'd caused a fire hazard at a previous event, complete with photoshopped images of flames near decorations. The client pulled out, citing concerns about safety and reliability. I cried that night, not from the loss, but from the sheer malice of it. Alex held me, furious. She's not just sabotaging your career, she's trying to destroy your confidence. But the anger fueled me. I started building alliances quietly, reaching out to vendors and past clients who'd worked with both of us, asking casual questions about their experiences. Several confirmed they'd received similar anonymous warnings about me, always after meeting Vanessa. One venue manager forwarded me an email she'd sent them warning I was known for last-minute changes and budget blowouts. The pattern was undeniable. Meanwhile, Vanessa kept up the act flawlessly. At a mutual friend's birthday dinner, she hugged me tightly, gushed about how proud I was of my resilience despite the tough breaks, even offered to connect me with a contact for my next pitch. I smiled back, thanked her sweetly, and later that night added the conversation recording, discreetly captured on my phone, to the growing folder labeled Vanessa Evidence. Alex watched me during these encounters with a mix of pride and worry. "You're playing her game better than she is," he said one night as we reviewed the latest batch of proof. "But be careful, she's unhinged enough to escalate if she senses you're onto her." He was right. The next escalation came fast and personal. My website, carefully curated with portfolio pieces, testimonials, client lists, suddenly showed a malware warning that scared off potential inquiries. Tech support traced it to a malicious script injected via a backdoor link in an email that looked like it came from a legitimate vendor. The email had been forwarded from Vanessa's address after she had helpfully connected me with a new florist contact months earlier. I spent days cleaning the site, rebuilding trust with clients, but the damage lingered. Fewer leads, hesitant responses. That was when I decided enough was enough. I hired a private digital forensics expert recommended by a lawyer friend, someone discreet, expensive, but thorough. Within a week, he confirmed what I'd suspected. Multiple anonymous accounts posting defamatory content traced to devices and IPs linked to Vanessa's home and office. He also uncovered a private group chat on a professional networking app where she'd been coordinating with a few sympathetic contacts to warn people about me, framing it as looking out for the industry. The evidence was mounting. Emails, IP logs, chat screenshots, even audio from a few recorded conversations where she slipped and admitted to helping certain clients avoid working with me. Alex and I sat with the lawyer the following week, laying it all out. She listened, reviewed the folder, and looked up with quiet fury. This isn't just professional sabotage. This is defamation, harassment, tortious interference with business relations. We have grounds for a civil suit. Damages, injunction to stop, possibly punitive if we prove malice. But suing would mean going public, airing dirty laundry in court, risking my reputation further if Vanessa spun it as bitter ex-wife drama. I hesitated. Is there another way? The lawyer smiled thinly. We could confront her with the evidence privately, give her the chance to cease and desist, pay restitution quietly. If she refuses, we file. Alex squeezed my hand under the table. Your call, but she doesn't get to keep smiling while she ruins you. I thought about every lost opportunity, every sleepless night doubting myself, every tear I'd hidden from the kids we didn't have yet but hoped for someday. Then I thought about the life we'd built, our home, our love, the future we deserved. We confront her, I said, but not quietly. She smiles in my face one more time. I want her to know exactly why it's the last time. The lawyer nodded. Then we prepare the demand letter, and we get ready for war. As we left the office that afternoon, rain starting to fall in heavy sheets, I felt something shift inside me. Not fear anymore, but cold, clear determination. Vanessa had spent years smiling while she stabbed me in the back. Now it was my turn to stop smiling and start fighting. The confrontation was coming, and when it did, her perfect facade would finally crack wide open. The demand letter went out on a crisp Tuesday morning. Formal, unemotional, delivered by certified mail and email to Vanessa's business address and personal one we dug up through public records. The lawyer had drafted it meticulously, 12 pages detailing every instance of sabotage we could prove: tortious interference, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, economic damages totaling over $80,000 in lost contracts, reputational harm, therapy bills I'd started racking up from the stress-induced anxiety attacks that left me shaking in the middle of client calls. Attached were exhibits, screenshots of matching proposals, IP logs tying anonymous accounts to her devices, forwarded emails with her warnings about me, even the audio clip from our last friendly coffee where she'd casually admitted to steering a client away because they deserved better. The letter gave her 14 days to cease all contact and interference, retract defamatory statements, pay a settlement covering documented losses plus legal fees, and sign a non-disparagement agreement. Failure to comply meant we'd file suit publicly, seek injunctions, and pursue punitive damages. I read the final version 3 times before hitting send, stomach churning with equal parts dread and exhilaration. Alex watched me from the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. You sure about this? No, I admitted, voice barely above a whisper. But I'm sure I can't keep letting her win. We waited. The first 3 days were silence, eerie, almost worse than the sabotage. I jumped every time my phone buzzed, expecting rage or denial or tears. Nothing. On day 4, Vanessa's lawyer responded, short, professional, denying everything. My client categorically rejects these baseless allegations. Any similarities in business proposals are coincidental in a small industry. The claims of harassment are unsubstantiated and appear motivated by personal animus stemming from her prior relationship with your client's husband. They demanded we retract the letter and apologize publicly within 48 hours or face a countersuit for defamation and tortious interference on her part. Alex laughed bitterly when I read it aloud. She's doubling down. Classic. The lawyer wasn't surprised. This is standard posturing. They want to see if we'll back off. We don't. We replied with more evidence, additional vendor statements confirming her interference, a sworn affidavit from a former colleague who'd overheard her bragging about protecting Alex from the wrong woman, even bank records showing unusual payments to the IP addresses tied to the anonymous accounts. The tone sharpened. Comply or we file. Day 7 brought the first crack. Vanessa called me directly, private number, voice calm but edged with something raw. Sarah, we need to talk. I put her on speaker so Alex could hear. There's nothing to talk about. You have the letter. This is insane. You're ruining my career over jealousy. I never... Save it, I cut in. We have proof. Emails, logs, witnesses. You've been sabotaging me for years. Stop lying. Silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then softly, I loved him. More than you ever will. You took what was mine. Alex's face darkened. He leaned toward the phone. "I was never yours after you cheated, and Sarah didn't take anything. You lost it all on your own." Her breath hitched, almost a sob. "I don't understand. Seeing you two happy, it killed me. Every time you got a gig, I thought about what could have been. I just wanted to level the field." "You wanted to destroy me," I said flatly, "and you almost did, but not anymore." She laughed once, hollow, broken. "You think a letter stops this? You think people will believe you over me? I have friends, connections. I can make this worse." The threat hung there, naked now. I ended the call without another word, hands shaking so badly I dropped the phone. Alex pulled me into his arms. "She's scared, that's why she's lashing out." But fear made her dangerous. The next 48 hours were chaos. Anonymous reviews flooded my profiles again, this time more vicious, claiming theft of ideas, emotional instability, even hinting at substance issues, with no proof but plenty of insinuation. Clients I'd pitched to suddenly went silent. One emailed back, "We received concerning information about your professional conduct. We'll be pursuing other options." Vanessa's firm announced 2 new high-profile bookings the same week, events I'd been shortlisted for. She was escalating, daring us to file. We did. The lawsuit papers were served at her office on a Friday afternoon, process server walking in during a client meeting, handing her the thick envelope while her staff watched in stunned silence. Photos of the moment leaked to industry forums within hours, anonymous but clearly staged for maximum humiliation. The caption read, "When the truth catches up." She didn't respond publicly first. Instead, her lawyer sent a flurry of motions. Motion to dismiss, motion for sanctions on us for frivolous litigation, affidavits from her witnesses swearing she'd never interfered. But our evidence held. Discovery began slowly. Subpoenas for her emails, phone records, financials. Each document request felt like peeling back another layer of her carefully constructed life. One email chain surfaced that made my blood run cold. Vanessa to a sympathetic vendor, "Make sure the venue knows Sarah's unreliable. I'll handle the rest." To a client, "I'd hate for you to waste money on someone who can't deliver. Happy to step in." The judge denied her motion to dismiss. A temporary restraining order followed, barring her from contacting me or my business associates, from posting about me online, from interfering in any way. Violation meant contempt charges. She complied, barely. The reviews stopped, the whispers quieted, but she didn't disappear. She started attending the same industry events I did, always across the room, always watching, never approaching, never speaking, just that same polished smile turned colder now, eyes tracking my every move like a predator sizing up wounded prey. At one gala I was finally invited to speak at, a small panel on ethical event planning. There she sat, in the 3rd row, notepad open, pen poised, staring. I spoke about integrity, about protecting your work and your reputation, about rising above sabotage without becoming the saboteur. My voice never wavered. When I finished, applause filled the room. She didn't clap. She just stood, smoothed her dress, and walked out before the Q&A began. Alex waited for me in the lobby afterwards, proud and worried in equal measure. "You were incredible." "She was here, watching," I said. He pulled me close. "Let her watch. She can't touch you anymore." But as we drove home through the city lights, I knew the war wasn't over. Vanessa had lost the battles of sabotage and silence, but she hadn't surrendered. The smile was still there, thinner now, sharper, and somewhere behind it, the fight continued, quiet, patient, waiting for the next opening. I tightened my grip on Alex's hand. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. Because this time, I wasn't just surviving her attacks, I was winning. And winning meant never letting her steal another piece of what we'd built. Not one more project, not one more opportunity, not one more night of doubt. The truth was out. And truth, once spoken, doesn't go back into the shadows. The temporary restraining order arrived like a thin shield, paper and ink that legally barred Vanessa from contacting me, interfering with my business, or posting anything defamatory about me online. But it felt fragile against the years of quiet venom she'd already unleashed. I carried a copy in my bag to every meeting, a reminder that I finally had recourse, yet the industry still whispered. Clients hesitated before signing contracts, vendors asked probing questions about past issues, and every new pitch required extra layers of proof that I was reliable, professional, trustworthy. Vanessa complied with the letter of the order. No direct messages, no anonymous reviews, no overt sabotage, but she found ways to circle the edges. She appeared at the same trade shows I attended, always positioned across crowded ballrooms or down long conference hallways, never close enough to violate the distance requirement, but near enough that I felt her gaze like a physical weight. At one networking breakfast, she sat 3 tables away, laughing brightly with a group of planners I'd once considered allies, her eyes flicking toward me every few minutes with that same polished smile, now edged in ice. I kept my back straight, focused on conversations, but inside the old doubt crept back. Was she still winning by simply existing in the same space, reminding everyone she was still here, still successful, still untouchable? Alex noticed the toll it took, the way I'd come home quieter after events, replaying every glance, every overheard laugh. "She's trying to unnerve you," he said one night as we sat on the couch, his arm around my shoulders. "Don't let her. You have the upper hand now." He was right, but knowing it didn't erase the exhaustion. Discovery in the lawsuit moved forward slowly, each document request peeling back another layer of her carefully curated life. Her emails revealed more than I'd expected. Chains with sympathetic contacts where she'd framed her interference as protecting the industry from incompetence, forwarded threads mocking my proposals as amateurish, even a private message to a mutual vendor joking that Sarah's husband deserves better than someone who can't keep a client. The lawyer compiled it all into a growing exhibit list, each piece strengthening our case for malice and damages. We deposed her on a rainy Thursday in a sterile conference room downtown. She arrived in a sharp charcoal suit, hair perfect, expression composed. When she saw me sitting beside my lawyer, she offered that familiar bright smile, professional, detached, as if we were strangers who had once crossed paths. "Sarah, nice to see you looking well." I didn't return the smile. The deposition lasted 6 hours. Her lawyer objected constantly, but she answered, carefully, evasively, every response laced with plausible deniability. I don't recall sharing that information. It must be a coincidence. I was only trying to help clients make informed decisions. But cracks appeared under pressure, a slight hesitation when asked about the IP addresses tied to the anonymous accounts, a flicker of anger when confronted with her own email admitting she'd steered a client away from me. By the end, her composure had thinned. She left without another word to me, heels clicking sharply down the hallway. That night, Alex and I celebrated quietly. Takeout sushi, a bottle of wine we'd been saving, the kids at my parents' for the evening. "She's scared," he said, raising his glass. "You could see it." I clinked mine against his. Good, she should be. But fear made her unpredictable. 2 weeks later, during a routine check of my professional email, I found a message from a former client, the one who'd pulled out after the anonymous package arrived. Subject, apology and update. The client wrote that after receiving our lawsuit documents, we'd subpoenaed their communications as part of discovery, they'd reviewed old emails and realized they'd been manipulated. Vanessa had sent the package posing as a concerned colleague. The client was willing to testify, provide sworn statements, even refer new business my way as amends. More followed. 2 other clients contacted me independently, admitting they'd received similar warnings and now regretted pulling out. The tide was turning, slowly but unmistakably. Vanessa's lawyer sent a settlement offer shortly after, $25,000, a mutual non-disparagement agreement, no admission of wrongdoing. My lawyer laughed when she read it. "They're panicking. This is insultingly low." We countered with our full damages claim, $120,000 plus legal fees and a public retraction posted on her business website for 30 days. Silence for a week. Then another offer, $60,000. Still no admission. We held firm. The pressure mounted publicly now. Industry blogs picked up whispers of the lawsuit, anonymous sources confirming a prominent planner is facing serious allegations of professional sabotage. Vanessa's social media grew quieter. Her usual polished posts about successful events slowed to a trickle. At the next major trade conference I attended, she wasn't there. Her booth space, usually prominent, sat empty, a simple sign reading, "Withdrawn." Word spread quickly, clients distancing themselves, vendors hesitating to partner, her usually flourishing network fraying at the edges. I received my first big post-lawsuit win that month, a contract for a national brand's product launch, the kind of event I'd dreamed of before her sabotage began. When I signed the agreement, I felt something loosen in my chest, a knot of self-doubt finally unraveling. Alex surprised me that night with flowers and a quiet dinner at home. "You did it," he said, kissing my temple. "You fought back, and you won." But the victory felt incomplete. Vanessa hadn't admitted anything yet, hadn't apologized, hadn't truly paid for the years of damage. The settlement negotiations dragged on, her side pushing for confidentiality, ours demanding acknowledgement. Then came the call I hadn't expected. My lawyer's number flashed on my screen at 8 p.m. on a Thursday. She wants to meet, in person, no lawyers, just you, her, and one neutral mediator. She says she's ready to settle, full amount, plus a statement. I stared at the phone. Alex watched from across the room, eyebrow raised. "You don't have to," he said. "We can keep pushing in court." But something in me needed to see her face when she finally admitted it, needed to hear the words. "I'll go," I told him, but not alone. The meeting was set for the following week in a private conference room at the mediator's office, neutral ground, recorded for the record. As the day approached, I rehearsed what I'd say, how I'd stay calm, how I'd finally look into the eyes that had watched me struggle for so long and say, "Enough." Vanessa arrived early, dressed simply, no power suit, no perfect makeup, just jeans and a sweater, hair pulled back, looking smaller than I remembered. When I walked in, she stood, offered a hand I didn't take. "Sarah." The mediator began, outlining terms. Then Vanessa spoke, voice low, steady, stripped of pretense. "I did it. All of it. The emails, the reviews, the calls. I hated seeing you succeed where I failed. I hated that you had him. I wanted you to feel what I felt. Small, replaceable." She looked at me then, eyes clear for the first time. "I'm sorry. Not because I got caught. Because I was wrong. I'll pay what you ask. I'll post the retraction. I'll leave the industry if that's what you want." I sat silent for a long moment, letting her words settle. Then I spoke. "I don't want you to leave. I want you to stop. No more games, no more shadows. You sign everything. Admission, damages, permanent non-contact, and you stay out of my orbit. Forever." She nodded once. "Done." The papers were signed that afternoon. The check arrived the following week. The retraction posted on her website the day after. Simple, stark. I regret my actions towards Sarah, last name, and acknowledge that I engaged in unprofessional conduct that harmed her business. I apologize without reservation. The industry noticed. Whispers turned to conversations. Clients returned. Opportunities reopened. Vanessa faded from the spotlight. Her business downsized. Her presence at events rare, eventually non-existent. She moved cities 6 months later. I never heard from her again. And in the quiet that followed, I finally stopped looking behind me. The projects came back. Bigger, better, mine. The smile she once wore in my face was gone, and the life she'd tried to ruin stood stronger than ever, built not on lies or sabotage, but on truth spoken, boundaries held, and the quiet, unbreakable resolve to fight back until the war was won. The settlement check cleared on a gray Thursday afternoon, 3 months after Vanessa's in-person admission, the numbers staring back at me from the bank app screen, feeling both surreal and insufficient against the years of quiet devastation she'd caused. $135,000, full damages, plus legal fees, plus a modest amount for emotional distress, deposited without fanfare, no apology attached, just cold zeros and commas. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the notification while Alex cooked dinner behind me, the smell of garlic and onions filling the room like normalcy trying to reclaim space. "It's done," I said quietly. He turned from the stove, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "Is it?" I nodded slowly. She signed everything. The retraction's been up for 2 weeks. No violations reported. She's gone quiet. Website still lists her, but no new events posted. Word is she's scaled back, maybe even considering closing shop. Alex crossed the room, pulled out the chair beside me, and took my hand. "You fought for this. Every dollar is yours. Proof you didn't let her win." But the money felt secondary. What mattered more was the shift inside me. For the first time in years, I woke without the low hum of dread, without scanning event listings for her name, without second-guessing every new client who hesitated before signing. The restraining order remained active, renewed for another year after her lawyer tried and failed to argue it was no longer necessary. I kept copies in my work bag, in the glove compartment, in the home safe, insurance against the day she might decide silence wasn't enough. Industry fallout continued quietly. Vanessa's retraction post stayed pinned to her homepage for the full 30 days, as agreed, plain text on white background. I acknowledge that I engaged in unprofessional and harmful conduct towards Sarah, last name, including interference with her business relationships and dissemination of false information. I sincerely apologize for my actions and the distress they caused. I have ceased all such behavior and will not engage in it in the future. Comments were disabled. Shares were minimal. People in our small world understood the subtext without needing elaboration. Clients who dropped me began reaching out again, some with awkward apologies. We received misleading information and regret our decision. I responded professionally. "Thank you. Happy to discuss future opportunities," without gloating. Revenge tasted better as success than bitterness. My first post-settlement project came quickly, a destination wedding for a tech executive couple who'd heard about the lawsuit through industry channels and chose me specifically because you stood up for yourself. The event was flawless. Oceanfront venue at sunset, custom floral installations that drew gasps, every detail executed with the precision I'd always possessed but had doubted under Vanessa's shadow. When the bride hugged me at the end of the night, tears in her eyes whispering, "This was perfect. Thank you for fighting for it," I felt the last knot in my chest finally loosen. Alex surprised me with a small celebration afterward. Just us, a bottle of champagne on the back porch, stars sharp overhead. "To new beginnings," he toasted, "and to the woman who refused to stay small." I clinked my glass against his, the sound bright in the quiet night. But closure rarely arrives clean. 6 months after the settlement, I received an unexpected email from a junior planner who'd once worked under Vanessa. Subject: "What really happened?" The message was short, honest. "I quit last month. Couldn't stomach what I saw anymore." She never admitted it publicly, but in private she still talks about you. Says you ruined her life with the lawsuit. She's bitter, drinking more, losing clients. I thought you should know she's not done hating. Be careful. I forwarded it to the lawyer immediately. She replied within the hour. "No direct violation yet. Keep records. If she contacts you or interferes again, we file for contempt." I printed the email, added it to the file, then deleted the original. Vanessa's bitterness was her burden now, not mine. Life moved forward in steady increments. I hired my first full-time assistant, someone bright, eager, with no history in the industry to taint her view of me. We built a small team, expanded services to include virtual event consulting when the market shifted post-pandemic, landed a contract with a national nonprofit for their annual conference series. Alex and I started talking seriously about starting a family, nights spent researching fertility clinics, dreaming about nurseries and tiny shoes. The fear that had once shadowed every decision faded to caution, then to occasional memory. Yet caution remained useful. At a large industry awards gala the following spring, the first time I'd been nominated since the lawsuit, I spotted Vanessa across the ballroom. She looked diminished, thinner, makeup heavier, smile forced. Our eyes met briefly. She raised her glass in a mock toast, then turned away. I didn't flinch. I didn't smile back. I simply walked to my table, sat beside Alex, and accepted congratulations from colleagues who now knew the story and respected me more for surviving it. I didn't win the award that night. Another planner took home the trophy, but the applause when my name was called felt louder than any prize. Vanessa left early. I stayed until the end. Months later, industry gossip reported she'd sold her business at a loss, moved to a smaller city up north, started working freelance for local nonprofits. No more high-profile events, no more power lunches, no more sabotage, at least none that reached me. The last trace came in the form of a single postcard slipped into my mailbox at home. No stamp, hand-delivered somehow. Front, a generic beach sunset. Back, 3 words in her familiar handwriting. You won. Congratulations. No signature. No return address. I showed it to Alex. He studied it for a moment, then walked to the shredder in the office and fed it through without a word. The blade's word. Paper turning to confetti. She's done, he said. And for the first time, I believed it completely. The projects kept coming. Bigger budgets, international clients, partnerships that felt earned instead of stolen. I mentored young planners now, sharing stories of resilience without naming names, teaching them to document everything, trust their instincts, fight back when necessary. Each time a mentee landed their first big win, I felt the circle close a little more, proof that what Vanessa tried to break had instead multiplied. Alex and I welcomed our daughter the following year, tiny, fierce, with his eyes and my determination. We named her Elena, after my grandmother, who taught me never to apologize for taking space. When I held her that first night, watching her tiny chest rise and fall, I understood the deepest victory wasn't the settlement, or the retraction, or even Vanessa's retreat. It was this: a life rebuilt, a family growing, a career thriving, all things she'd tried to take and failed. She smiled in my face while sharpening the knife. I stopped smiling and started fighting. And in the quiet hours after Elena's midnight feed, when the house slept and the world felt still, I finally let the last shadow of her go. Not with anger, not with triumph, just with the simple, steady breath of someone who'd walked through fire and come out whole. The war was over. The peace was mine. And it was beautiful. The first year after Vanessa's retreat felt like walking on newly healed skin, tender, aware of every touch, but no longer bleeding. The settlement money sat in a dedicated account we never touched except for reinvesting in the business. A new website with stronger security, professional headshots that radiated confidence, a small office space downtown so I could separate work from home and finally stop glancing over my shoulder in my own kitchen. Clients returned in waves, some apologetic, others simply curious about the woman who'd stood up to sabotage and won. Referrals multiplied. The National Nonprofit Conference Series expanded to include regional summits, each one executed with the precision I'd always had, but now delivered without the shadow of doubt. I hired 2 more assistants, bright, ambitious women who asked questions instead of assuming, who celebrated every win like it was theirs too. The team grew into something solid, collaborative, the opposite of the isolation Vanessa had tried to force on me. Alex watched it all with quiet pride, coming home each evening to a house that smelled of fresh coffee and possibility instead of stress. We started trying for a second child. Elena was 3 now, a whirlwind of curls and curiosity who loved helping mommy plan parties by scattering glitter across every surface. Fertility treatments weren't easy. There were appointments, injections, waiting rooms filled with other hopeful couples, but we faced them together, holding hands during ultrasounds, laughing through the side effects. When the second pregnancy test came back positive on a quiet Sunday morning, Alex lifted me off the floor and spun me in the kitchen while Elena clapped from her high chair. "Another one," he whispered against my hair. "We're doing this." The business thrived alongside our growing family. I spoke at industry panels now, not as the victim of sabotage, but as the example of resilience. I shared anonymized versions of the story, how sabotage can hide behind smiles, how documentation saves reputations, how fighting back doesn't make you difficult, it makes you professional. Audiences listened. Young planners approached me afterward with their own quiet fears, their own Vanessa stories. I gave them the tools I'd learned the hard way. Track everything, trust your instincts, build alliances before you need them. Each conversation felt like closing another small circle, turning personal pain into collective armor. Vanessa herself remained a ghost. Occasional industry gossip reached me through colleagues. She'd moved to a mid-sized city upstate, taken a part-time role with a nonprofit arts council, kept a low profile. No social media presence anymore, no curated event photos, no inspirational quotes, no subtle digs. The retraction post had been archived after the required 30 days, but screenshots lived forever on private forums where planners warned each other about difficult colleagues. She never violated the order, never reached out, never appeared at another event where I was speaking. It should have felt like victory. Mostly it did. But on quiet nights when Elena slept curled against my side and Alex snored softly beside us, I sometimes wondered if she'd truly changed or simply learned to hide better. The thought didn't keep me awake anymore. It just drifted through like smoke, acknowledged and released. Elena turned 4 the spring after our son Liam was born. Tiny, serious, with Alex's dark eyes and my stubborn chin. We celebrated with a backyard party. Bounce house, face painting, a cake shaped like a castle because Elena insisted princesses needed fortresses. Friends filled the yard. Old colleagues who'd stood by me during the lawsuit, new ones who only knew me as the successful planner with the thriving team. Laughter echoed off the fence. Kids ran wild. Alex grilled burgers while I refilled lemonade pitchers. In the middle of it all, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the party photos on your stories. Kids look happy. You built something beautiful. I'm glad. No name, no signature. But I knew. I stared at the screen for a long moment, thumb hovering over block. Alex noticed from across the yard, walked over, wiping his hands on a towel. Everything okay? I showed him the message. He read it, jaw tightening briefly, then softening. She's reaching out. Yeah. I looked at our daughter blowing bubbles that caught the sunlight, our son asleep in the shaded bassinet, our friends laughing over shared stories. But she can't touch this. I blocked the number without replying, deleted the thread, slipped the phone back into my pocket. The party continued. Cake smeared on small faces, music playing, sunlight slanting golden through the trees. Later, after everyone left and the kids were bathed and in bed, Alex and I sat on the porch steps with glasses of wine, fireflies blinking in the dark. You didn't respond, he said quietly. I didn't need to. He nodded, understanding. She wanted acknowledgement. You gave her silence instead. She doesn't get to insert herself anymore, not even with words. We sat in comfortable quiet, listening to crickets and distant traffic. The message was her last attempt, a tentative reach across the distance she had created. My silence was the final boundary. No anger, no forgiveness demanded, just closure, on my terms. The business kept growing. We opened a second location in a neighboring city, hired more staff, launched an online course teaching ethical event planning and crisis management. Students messaged me regularly. Your story helped me spot red flags early. I documented everything and saved a contract. Each one felt like another layer of armor added to the industry she had once tried to poison. Liam took his first steps in the office while I was on a conference call, toddling straight to me with arms outstretched. Elena drew pictures of mommy's big parties with glitter crowns and rainbow cakes. Alex still came home every night with that same steady love, still held me when old doubts whispered in the dark. And Vanessa, wherever she was, remained on the periphery, a cautionary tale instead of a threat. The projects I planned now were bigger, bolder, international conferences, celebrity galas, charity balls that raised millions, each one executed flawlessly, each one proof that what she tried to ruin had only grown stronger in the fight. I no longer looked for her name on attendee lists or braced for sabotage in every contract. The war was history, the peace was present. And in every quiet moment, watching my children sleep, feeling Alex's hand in mine, signing another dream contract, I understood the deepest truth. She smiled while she tried to break me, but I stopped smiling and started building. And what I built, family, career, self, couldn't be touched by shadows anymore. It stood in the light, solid and shining, exactly as it was meant to be. The past had shaped me, sharpened me, but it no longer defined me. What defined me now was the future I'd fought for, the life I'd reclaimed, and the quiet, unbreakable certainty that no one, not even someone who once smiled in my face while sharpening the knife, could ever take that away again. The second child changed everything, in the quietest, most profound ways. Liam arrived with a calm that contrasted Elena's bright energy, sleeping through nights almost from the start, while his sister had fought sleep like it was an enemy. Mornings became a gentle chaos of bottles, tiny fists grabbing at hair, Elena's endless questions about why babies cried so much, and when Liam would be big enough to play tag. The business adapted around this new rhythm. I worked shorter hours in the office, delegated more to the team, took client calls from the nursery while rocking Liam to sleep, turned down weekend events that once would have been automatic yeses. Success no longer meant saying yes to everything. It meant choosing what mattered. The team understood. They'd watched me fight for the business when it was threatened, and now they fought for me to have balance. We promoted my first assistant to partner. She ran the day-to-day while I focused on strategy, creative direction, the parts that still lit me up. Revenue grew steadily without me burning out. The company became something sustainable, something that could outlast me if I ever chose to step back. Vanessa remained a closed chapter, mentioned only rarely in industry circles as that situation a few years back. New planners coming up didn't know her name unless someone told the story, and even then it was framed as cautionary rather than scandalous. I'd stopped checking for her online presence years earlier. No Google alerts, no industry forum scans. She'd become irrelevant, a ghost who'd once haunted but no longer had power to frighten. Yet on Elena's 8th birthday, a bright June day filled with water balloons, face painting, and a bounce house that nearly collapsed under the weight of excited children, I received an unexpected delivery. Not a package, not a letter, just a single envelope slipped under the front door while we were all in the backyard. Plain white, no stamp, my name typed on the front. Inside, a small card with a watercolor painting of a family under a tree. Simple lines, soft colors, unmistakably her style from the days when she'd still pretended friendship. On the back, in careful handwriting, for Elena. Happy birthday. I hope she grows up knowing she's loved beyond measure. I'm truly sorry for everything. V. No return address, no phone number, just the card and a small gift card to the local art supply store, enough for a set of quality watercolors. I stared at it for a long moment while laughter drifted from the yard. Alex found me in the hallway, saw my face, took the card without a word. He read it, turned it over, studied the painting. She's reaching again. Not the same way, I said quietly. This isn't sabotage, it's regret. He looked at me, waiting. Do we tell Elena? I shook my head. Not yet. Maybe when she's older. For now, it's just a card from someone who used to know us. I placed it in the keepsake box with her first drawings, baby shoes, hospital bracelets, the artifacts of our family's story. It didn't feel like reopening a wound. It felt like closing one. The party continued. Cake smeared on small faces, water balloons exploding in colorful bursts, Elena beaming as she blew out candles shaped like numbers 8. Later, after the last guest left and the kids were bathed and in bed, Alex and I sat on the porch with the remnants of the day. Deflated balloons rolling across the grass, paper plates stacked on the table. You okay? He asked. I leaned against him. Yeah, it's strange, but peaceful. She's not trying to take anything this time. She's just saying she's sorry. Do you believe her? I thought about it. The years of sabotage, the lies, the settlement, the silence that followed. I believe she's sorry now. Whether that changes anything, no. But it doesn't have to hurt anymore. We sat in companionable quiet, watching fireflies rise from the grass. Liam stirred once in his crib. Elena's soft snores drifted through the open window. The life we'd fought for surrounded us. Imperfect, messy, beautiful. Vanessa's card didn't reopen old wounds. It simply acknowledged they'd existed. And that acknowledgement, however late, felt like the final piece settling into place. The business continued to thrive. We launched a mentorship program for young planners, offering free workshops on ethics, documentation, spotting red flags, lessons carved from my own experience. Students came from across the country. Some shared their own stories of sabotage, of colleagues who smiled while they undermined. Each time I listened, I felt the circle widen. Pain turned into protection, one conversation at a time. Elena started asking deeper questions about work. Mommy, why do some people try to hurt other people's jobs? I answered carefully. Sometimes people are hurting inside and they don't know how to handle it. They make bad choices, but we don't let them stop us from doing what we love. She nodded solemnly. Like when someone takes your toy but you still play with something else? Exactly like that. Liam, still too young for nuance, simply hugged my leg and said, Mommy's parties are the best. And they were. The projects kept coming, larger, more meaningful, a global climate summit's opening gala, a celebrity foundation's annual fundraiser, intimate weddings that felt like love letters written in light and flowers. Each one executed with the same care, the same attention to detail, but now with a team that shared the load and celebrated every success as their own. Vanessa's name surfaced once more years later in a small industry newsletter. She'd passed away unexpectedly, heart condition, sudden and quiet. The obituary was brief, mentioning her early success in event planning, her later work with nonprofits, no mention of controversy or scandal. I read it alone in the office one morning, coffee cooling beside me. No surge of triumph, no lingering anger, just a quiet sadness for someone who'd wasted so much energy on destruction when creation had always been within reach. I closed the browser, sipped my coffee, and went back to planning the next event, a children's hospital benefit with interactive art stations for the kids. Elena helped design the invitations that year. Her drawings turned into colorful prints, every one unique. When the event succeeded beyond expectations, raising more than any previous year, she beamed at the thank you card from the hospital director. We helped people, Mommy. We did, I said, hugging her close, and in that hug, with Liam tugging at my leg and Alex watching from the doorway, I understood the final truth. Vanessa tried to ruin me, but she only sharpened me. The projects she'd sabotaged had become stepping stones to something bigger. The opportunities she'd blocked had led to doors she could never have imagined. The smile she'd worn while plotting had faded, while mine, earned through fire, remained steady, genuine, unbreakable. The war had ended long ago. What remained was life, loud, messy, beautiful, full of glitter on the floor and tiny hands reaching up, of late-night planning sessions and early morning cuddles, of a family that had weathered the storm and emerged not just intact, but stronger. Vanessa's name was gone. The shadow she had cast had lifted completely, and in its place stood only light, bright, steady, mine. The children grew in the way children do, sudden spurts of height, new teeth, new questions that arrived fully formed and demanded honest answers. Elena turned 13 on a crisp autumn day, no longer the glitter-covered birthday girl, but a thoughtful teenager who carried sketchbooks like shields and spoke about architecture the way most kids her age talked about music or sports. Liam, 9 now, still collected rocks but had added astronomy to his obsessions. His room walls were covered in glow-in-the-dark constellations he'd mapped himself, and he'd lie on the backyard grass for hours naming stars, while Buddy, graying around the muzzle, slept beside him. The house had evolved with them, The office became a shared creative space where Elena spread blueprints across the table and Liam built model rockets from kits. The backyard gained a small telescope dome Alex constructed over one long weekend, and my event planning business had matured into something steady and respected, a boutique agency known for flawless execution and ironclad ethics, with a team of 8 who handled the day-to-day while I focused on vision, mentorship, and the occasional high-profile project that still sparked the same excitement I'd felt in the beginning. Vanessa's name hadn't crossed my lips in years. The settlement money had long since been reinvested, part into college funds for the kids, part into expanding the business, part into a small scholarship program for young women entering event planning, named quietly after my grandmother, who'd taught me resilience before I knew I'd need it. The restraining order had expired without renewal. No violations, no sightings, no shadows at the edges of events. She'd become a footnote in industry lore, something older planners mentioned in passing when warning newcomers about the importance of documentation, but never with malice, just caution. I rarely thought of her anymore. Life had filled the spaces she'd once tried to occupy. Then, on Elena's 14th birthday, another backyard celebration, this time with friends from school, fairy lights strung through the trees, a playlist she'd curated herself, a small envelope arrived in the mail, plain white, postmarked from a town 3 states away, no return address. Inside, a single sheet of thick paper, folded once, with handwriting I recognized instantly, though the strokes were slower now, more deliberate. "Elena," it began, "I hope this finds you well. I saw photos from your art show online. Your designs are extraordinary. You have a gift. I wanted to send something small, a set of professional watercolor brushes I used when I first started. They're old, but they still hold the paint beautifully. I hope you'll use them to create more beauty in the world. I'm sorry I wasn't the person I should have been when I knew your family. I carry that regret every day. Be kind to yourself and others. You're already doing better than I ever did. With respect and hope, Vanessa." Tucked inside the envelope was a slim wooden box containing the brushes, high-quality sable, well-loved but meticulously cleaned, wrapped in tissue paper. No note demanding forgiveness, no attempt to insert herself back into our lives, just acknowledgement, apology, and a small offering. I read it twice while the party noise drifted in from the yard. Laughter, music, the pop of soda cans. Elena found me in the kitchen, still holding the paper. "Mom, what's that?" I folded the letter carefully. "Something from someone I used to know. For you." I handed her the box. She opened it, ran her fingers over the brushes. "These are beautiful. Who sent them?" "An old colleague. She wanted you to have them." Elena studied my face, sharp as always. "The one who was mean to you, from the stories?" I nodded slowly. "Yes, but people can change, or at least regret. She's saying she's sorry, really sorry, without asking for anything back." Elena thought about it, then closed the box gently. "Can I use them?" "Of course." She hugged me quickly, then ran back outside to show her friends. I watched her go, the letter still in my hand. Alex came in from the yard, saw my expression, took the paper without asking. He read it silently, then set it down. "She's not asking to come back." "No. She's just letting go." "Maybe." We stood together at the window, watching Elena show the brushes to her friends, explaining how special they were. Liam ran up with a captured firefly in cupped hands, Elena laughing as she helped him release it. The party continued. Cake, gifts, sparklers when the sun set. Later, after everyone left and the kids were asleep, Alex and I cleaned up in comfortable silence, stacking chairs, sweeping confetti. When we finally sat on the porch steps with the last of the wine, he asked quietly, "What are you going to do with the letter?" I looked at it again, simple words on thick paper, carrying years of weight, but no demand. "Keep it, in the keepsake box with the other things. Not hidden, just part of the story." He nodded. "He doesn't get to rewrite it." "No, but she gets to live with it, and we get to live without it." The next morning, Elena was already in the studio, formerly the guest room, testing the brushes on thick watercolor paper, painting soft landscapes that reminded me of the one on the card. She didn't ask more questions, she just used them, creating beauty from tools that once belonged to someone who'd tried to destroy mine. The business continued, larger projects, international clients, a TEDx talk invitation where I spoke about the cost of sabotage and the power of proof. I shared the anonymized story again, focusing on resilience, boundaries, the importance of allies. The audience listened. Afterward, young women came up to me in tears, sharing their own stories of sabotage masked as friendship. I listened. I gave them the tools. Each conversation felt like another layer of healing, not just for me, but for the next generation. Vanessa never contacted us again. No more cards, no more messages. Whatever path she walked, regret, redemption, or simply quiet survival, was hers alone. Ours was filled with ordinary miracles. Elena's first art exhibition at the local gallery, Liam's science fair project winning first place, Alex's promotion that let him work from home more, family vacations where we built sandcastles and watched sunsets without looking over our shoulders. The life she'd tried to ruin had become something fuller, richer, unbreakable. And in the quiet moments, watching Elena paint with brushes that once belonged to her enemy, seeing Liam name stars while Buddy slept at his feet, feeling Alex's hand in mine as we walked the kids to school, I understood the final truth. She smiled while she tried to break what we had, but we'd stopped smiling only long enough to fight back. Then we'd smiled again, deeper, truer, together. The war had ended years ago. What remained was life, loud with children's laughter, bright with creativity, steady with love. Vanessa had faded into memory, a cautionary tale told softly to those who needed to hear it. And we, our family, our business, our future, stood in the light she'd once tried to dim, shining brighter for having faced the dark. Not because we'd destroyed her, but because we refused to let her destroy us. And that refusal, carried day by day, year by year, had built something no sabotage could ever touch. A life whole, happy, and entirely our own.